You have just woken up in a big cage with all your clothes missing. Now you're in a giant basement system full of freaky maniacs with bags on their heads. Your actions? You probably heard about David Szymanski. Without a doubt, this man can be called almost the king of modern indie horror. I mean, real indie horror, not the kind of thing that's usually mistakenly referred to as such. David develops all of his games entirely on his own, and believe me, he rarely misses. Even if you've never heard of this developer, you've definitely heard of projects like Iron Lung and DUSK. I would be surprised if you somehow missed their popularity. Anyway, when I said that David's games are always masterpieces, I was slightly exaggerating. Because today, we're going to talk about his less successful project, Butcher's Creek. Empty gameplay, empty violence, and a huge amount of missed potential. Subscribe to my channel and like this video. Let's get started. Butcher's Creek is a melee horror game that came out over a year ago, where we have to go through numerous corridors and basements while dealing with a horde of serial torturers. As weapons for fighting, we have a wide selection of household items such as shovels, pipes, hammers, boards, and so on. But we'll get back to the gameplay later. First, I think it's important to introduce the story. The game starts with a textual introduction. It came to pass that the celestial ball of sinners grew so large as to block out the very sun, and somehow life went on. Humanity marched forward through the torments of hell and the schemes of its exiles, and laughed. For no one laughs harder than a sinner in hell. There is no mirth greater than that of the madman, and then one such madman was called to the town of Butcher's Creek, tempted by the promise of depraved videotapes, guided by rumor and instinct alike. That madman is us. We arrive at a remote abandoned cabin in search of snuff tapes. Just in case you don't know, a snuff tape is the kind of film that features gore. We find human bones scattered everywhere, and after exploring a small building, we discover a hatch leading down to a dark basement. There we face the first maniac, who jumps at us out of nowhere. After successfully killing him, we go through a few more rooms and manage to escape the basement. While attempting to find a phone to get away from here, we're struck by someone and lose consciousness. This is where we get to the moment we saw in the very beginning of the video. We wake up in a big cage completely naked and manage to escape using a box cutter. And this is when the main part of the game starts. A long, monotonous main part full of eternal fighting with the NPCs, finding new weapons, and passing repetitive dark locations with blood and dead bodies. Actually, nothing would change if we just skipped a big chunk of the game because nothing actually happens in there. All I will talk about are a few important notes we can find in different rooms. First, there's a page mentioning some mysterious thing called the Watcher that seems to be the one in charge of this maniac army. Soon, there's another note about them. In it, one of the torturers expresses his doubts about the Watcher, assuming that none of them have ever even seen this thing. Later, we find an excerpt from the Book of the Watcher. It describes the ideas that all of these cultists live by. I think we can safely call them that. The text states that this thing requires victims as any human requires food and water, and encourages the maniacs to feed the Watcher with the fear of the victims. Also, there's a note crucial for understanding the plot. The author predicts the appearance of a man who will come here as meat, while having the soul of a butcher. The one called the Tooth Sower will make his way under the mountain, in which the lair of the torturers is located, and will meet the Watcher. The author calls this the Crimson Communion, the moment of the apocalypse, in which the Watcher will escape to freedom. In his opinion, the only way to avoid it is to faithfully follow the teachings of the cult. As you might have already thought, the Tooth Sower is the protagonist. And right now, we are making our way to the Watcher itself. Meanwhile, we go through a place called the Magic Fairy Castle, where the torturers skin their victims alive, and eventually go into its depths. Then there's the territory of the Pony Keeper, where most of the maniacs wear horse skulls on their head and consider themselves as ponies. Anyway, we come to the surface again, finding a church with a brothel inside of it. Here, we probably learn why the prediction of our arrival has come true. In the note, it's written that one of the torturers, named Jack, has disregarded the cult's fanaticism. As we know, the Crimson Communion is being avoided only by believing in its teachings. Perhaps Jack's actions have led to our appearance. After another half hour or so of running and fighting, we finally get to the very heart of the mountain. Going through a dark, long corridor, we face the Watcher, who appears to be a shapeless meat essence. The creature roars and soon attacks us. Now, I advise epileptics to fast forward or close the video because the screen is beginning to flash with red and black, showing just 3 words: the Crimson Communion. The epilogue narrates, but the Watcher could not have known that the Tooth Sower would love it back. as we see how the creature absorbs us. With glimpses caught of blinding white and dying screams of deathless night, to cut and raze with searing sight, the watcher will arise. So, what was it all? In short, in a world completely plunged into darkness, there is a clan of cultists who, through violence, restrain the infernal evil from destroying the world. The protagonist is such a sinful man that he wants to merge with this evil, which he succeeds in doing in the finale. Now that the story is more or less clear, I think it's time to discuss the gameplay. And here we have really not much, honestly. The game only includes a few basic mechanics. When we fight, we can hit, block, kick, or throw our weapon. And I can't say that fighting is something interesting here because, well, when you encounter the first enemies, it can be satisfying to crush them with a hammer and hear them swear. But very soon, you meet the NPCs in every frickin' room and you actually wish you could just skip them. Maybe a wide range of weapons is saving the situation? No. Although the weapons are indeed diverse, they all feel the same. No matter what you pick, a sledgehammer or an axe, nothing changes in general. Just damage or speed stats. Another mechanic here is healing. While exploring the basements, you will find many VHS tapes and gore photos that regain your health. But in some places, you have to sacrifice a few tapes to open the door, so you lose a little bit of your health bar. Moreover, you can heal by taking photos of bloody locations and objects, which is actually kind of interesting. And yeah, that's all. Yeah, of course, you should also avoid glass fragments on the floor and try not to get cut, or you should move some boxes out of your way, but these details don't add anything major to the gameplay. And there's a good explanation for that. David Szymanski simply didn't know what this game was about. As he himself wrote in the Steam community, at the very beginning of development, he made certain mistakes which later began to severely limit him. At some point, he simply postponed the creation of the game and returned to it only in 2023. Something was cut from the game, something was significantly redone, and in the end, we got what we got. After all, did you notice how the violence isn't even used in gameplay? I mean, we're just killing dozens of people, and this is neither fun nor important for some greater idea. That's what makes this game so mediocre. It's not bad, it just has identity issues. But if you think I hate this game after everything I've said about it, no. First of all, the atmosphere is pretty decent here, and for the most part, this is due to the soundtrack. The music is so damn good. Uncomfortable howls and low-pitched creaking sounds create oppressive feelings and an enclosed atmosphere. The visual style, which is not really something unique for David's games, definitely would not work without this soundtrack. What can I say in the end? Butcher's Creek is clearly a playable game, and you can even enjoy it if you want, but the potential was way bigger for a project like this. However, we have just a mid-game that could be finished in an hour or two and forgotten. It's good that the developer moved on after this controversial experience and learned his lesson. I think everyone needs to do something mediocre sometimes in order to avoid making those same mistakes in the future. That's all, I think. Like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content. Bye!